It was supposed to be just another routine visit to the bank. A quick stop between meetings. The woman, dressed in a smart blazer and low heels, stepped into the branch she had passed 1,000 times, her name quietly engraved on the silver plaque near the main office upstairs. No one paid her much attention. The security guard gave a distracted nod. The teller didn't even look up when she approached the counter. She asked politely to make a withdrawal, nothing outrageous, just a fraction of what she had in her account. That's when things started to go wrong. The teller raised an eyebrow, glancing over the woman's simple outfit, then at the withdrawal amount again. "I'm sorry," she said with a flat tone. "We can't approve this request without additional verification. Do you have an appointment?" "An appointment? At her own bank?" The woman calmly explained that she was one of the founding members of this financial institution. That her company held millions here. That she was, in fact, the CEO of the very fintech firm that had recently acquired majority ownership in this bank. But her words didn't matter. The staff had already decided who they thought she was. A well-dressed woman trying to take out more than they thought she should. They asked her to wait. Told her to sit down. Said they had to check a few things. Then came the sideways glances. The whispers. The quiet judgment. As if she was trying to pull something sneaky. She waited silently, her fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. Not angry. Just disappointed. Not because she was denied her own money, but because they never once asked who she was. Never checked beyond the surface. Never paused to wonder why a woman would walk into a bank and confidently request a high withdrawal without fear. Because she wasn't afraid. And while they stalled and made calls, she made one of her own. To a number that didn't go to customer service or branch support, but straight to the top. By the time the bank manager came out, flustered and confused, it was already too late. What happened next made every employee in that room stop cold. But what no one knew was, this CEO didn't just come to make a withdrawal. She came with a lesson. And when it was over, the bank would never treat another customer the same way again. You won't believe what she did next. While the bank staff scrambled behind the glass walls, the woman remained seated in the waiting area, perfectly calm. Her eyes wandered around the lobby, the polished floors, the quiet buzz of printers, the large posters showing smiling families and phrases like, "Where your trust matters." The irony wasn't lost on her. This was the same bank that her company had just poured millions into during a recent merger. She knew every number in their quarterly reports, every shortfall they were trying to quietly cover. She even knew the names of most of the senior executives, because she hired them. But the people in this branch had no idea who she was. Not the teller who dismissed her, not the assistant manager who kept peeking at her from behind the door. To them, she was just another woman asking for too much. Maybe she didn't look like a CEO. Maybe she didn't fit the image they had in their heads. But that was the mistake. They made it about appearances. Her name was Ava Morgan. She didn't inherit money. She built her empire from a small desk in a shared office space. Through sleepless nights, failed pitches, and breakthroughs that came only after rejection. Her fintech company, Morgan Rise, started as a digital wallet solution for freelancers. Now, it was a multi-billion-dollar platform used by companies in over 30 countries. And after a recent strategic acquisition, it owned a controlling stake in the very bank where she now sat, waiting for permission to access her own funds. The irony wasn't just frustrating. It was revealing. Behind the scenes, the calls she made had triggered a chain reaction. Her assistant alerted the board chair. The board chair called the regional director. And now, executives who rarely visited branches were watching the security feed in real time, trying to figure out how the CEO ended up waiting like a stranger in her own bank. But Ava didn't flinch. She wanted this to play out. She needed to see just how deep the problem ran. It wasn't about her. It was about every customer who might have been treated the same way, judged, stalled, quietly dismissed. And while the staff still fumbled with verification procedures, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside. Someone important was arriving. But no one inside had any idea that things were about to spiral fast, and the lesson Ava was about to deliver wouldn't just shake the branch, it would shake the entire company. The SUV door opened and out stepped Jordan Hale, the bank's regional vice president. Sharp suit, perfectly knotted tie, and a phone pressed to his ear. He moved fast, tension on his face as he walked through the glass doors, nodding at the security guard, who suddenly stood straighter. Jordan was known for being calm under pressure, but this was unexpected. He had just received a call from corporate, and the voice on the other end had been crystal clear. Get to the branch. Now. And handle it with extreme care. Inside, Ava still sat quietly. Her presence was unshaken, but her patience had a purpose. She didn't want apologies. She wanted to see who would notice, who would ask the right questions, who would take responsibility. She watched as Jordan approached the teller desk, speaking low and quick, confusion clearly building on his face as the staff scrambled to explain what had happened. That she didn't have proper ID. That she made a suspiciously large withdrawal request. That no one had realized who she was. And that was the root of the conflict. No one had bothered to ask. Ava's quiet test had exposed a much deeper problem, one that reached far beyond her own experience. It was about how people were treated when they didn't fit a certain mold. How the systems that were supposed to serve everyone equally often defaulted to assumptions based on gender, skin tone, or clothing. It wasn't personal. That was what made it worse. Jordan finally turned toward her, and for a second, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Ava rose from her seat, slow and steady, offering him a polite smile, nothing more. He extended a hand, but she didn't take it. Not yet. Meanwhile, in another corner of the bank, Claire, the youngest teller on shift, watched the entire scene unfold. She had sensed something was off the moment Ava had walked in. She had seen the hesitation in the others, the way they dismissed the woman's confidence, not out of policy, but prejudice. Claire wanted to speak up, but like so many new hires, she feared backlash. Still, she began typing something into her notes app. If no one else addressed what happened, maybe she would. At the same time, across the city, Ava's executive assistant was organizing internal logs, emails, and reports. If needed, they were prepared to reveal just how deep the bias ran in customer service data. And still, no one inside the branch had any idea what Ava was truly planning next. The stakes were no longer about one withdrawal. They were about who was really in charge, and who deserved to be heard. Jordan cleared his throat and tried to regain control of the room. Miss Morgan, I want to personally apologize on behalf of the entire branch. This situation, clearly, should never have happened. His voice was careful, practiced, but Ava could hear the unease buried beneath it. She looked around the lobby, at the same tellers who still avoided her eyes. Some were whispering again, some had disappeared into back rooms, hoping to escape the storm. But the storm was just beginning. Ava slowly stepped forward and placed her phone on the counter. With a tap, she brought up a live video feed, something no one expected. On the screen was a private boardroom where several senior executives of the bank, including 2 members of the parent company's board, sat silently watching. They were already tuned in, already aware. This was no longer a quiet issue between a customer and a branch. This was now a top-level concern, one being documented in real time. Gasps spread across the staff. Even Jordan's face went pale. The realization that the woman they dismissed as just another demanding customer wasn't just someone, she was everyone they answered to. But Ava wasn't done. She turned to Jordan, speaking in a tone that was calm, even kind, but with a gravity that made every word land like a stone. If I was just a customer today, no title, no shares, no position, how would this have ended? Would I have walked out humiliated, labeled a risk for simply asking for my own money? Or would I have been escorted out like some threat? The lobby was silent. Claire, the young teller, stepped out from behind the counter, voice trembling slightly. "She's right," she said. "We don't treat everyone fairly. I've seen it. Not just today. It's been happening a long time." Jordan looked stunned. His grip on control was slipping fast, and now even his own team was turning toward the truth. Ava turned the screen around once more, and another window opened, a report her assistant had compiled, showing flagged incidents from across multiple branches. Patterns in how customers were profiled. Notes left in systems. Code words used to describe difficult clients. It wasn't just this location. It was systemic. But Ava still hadn't said what she planned to do next. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make demands. She just let the weight of the evidence, and the silence that followed, do the talking. Everyone in the branch was now holding their breath. Because whatever was coming next, it wasn't just about this bank anymore. As the entire branch held its breath, Ava paused, letting the silence deepen. Then, just when it seemed like she might deliver her final judgment, her phone buzzed. She glanced down briefly, her expression unreadable, then turned the screen to Jordan. A new email had arrived, one that no one saw coming. Attached was a letter from a federal compliance agency. Anonymous complaints had been filed against the bank weeks ago. Claims of customer profiling. With Ava's recent visit caught on camera and supported by real-time data, the agency had fast-tracked an audit. The investigation had officially been opened. That meant Ava wasn't just confronting the bank publicly, now the government was watching too. Jordan's face strained of color. His hands clenched as he read the subject line, Notice of Formal Regulatory Review, Internal Discrimination and Service Bias. The bank's reputation, licensing, and future deals were now at risk. One branch's mistake had triggered a chain reaction. The truth wasn't just a story, it was a liability. But Ava hadn't sent the complaints. That was the second twist. She had kept her distance, choosing to watch and collect proof. The real whistleblower? Claire. The young teller had anonymously submitted her notes and transcripts to the agency weeks earlier, after witnessing repeated profiling incidents. She never imagined the CEO herself would one day walk in and become living proof of what she'd been documenting. Her small voice, once buried under fear, had now become the spark that lit a fire across the entire company. Jordan turned to Claire, stunned. "You reported us?" Claire stood tall, her voice steadier this time. "I did. Because I was tired of watching people be treated like they didn't belong. I didn't do it to destroy the company. I did it to save it." The tension thickened. Now there were multiple truths colliding. A CEO seeking accountability. A junior employee risking everything for honesty. And a bank hierarchy teetering on the edge, caught between corporate pride and public fallout. Ava stepped closer to Jordan, lowering her voice but never losing control. "You can't fix what you won't face. And now, everyone's watching." The conflict had escalated beyond any single person in the room. The bank was under national scrutiny, its staff divided, and its leadership cornered. The question no one could answer yet was this: would Ava dismantle the institution she helped fund? Or was she about to rebuild it from the inside out? Either way, the final move was hers. Ava looked around the room, slowly meeting the eyes of every employee who had witnessed what happened. Some were ashamed, some simply confused, others clearly shaken by how fast things had escalated. She could have burned the place down, figuratively, of course. With a single press of a button, she had the power to strip the branch of its funding, remove its leadership, and let the audit tear it apart. But that's not why she came. Ava had built her success on fixing broken systems, not abandoning them. She turned to Jordan, her voice steady and sharp. "You've got two options," she said. "You can try to protect the people who created this culture and watch this company lose everything, or you can help me rebuild it from the inside. Starting today." Jordan swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Ava took a step back and handed him a signed document. It wasn't a termination letter, nor was it a lawsuit. It was a formal restructuring plan. One she had drafted before ever walking into the branch. She had predicted how she might be treated, and she came prepared not just to confront it, but to correct it. The plan detailed a sweeping reform, mandatory inclusion training, a new internal reporting system, anonymous employee feedback programs, and a rotating accountability committee led by staff, not executives. And the person she appointed to lead that committee? Claire. The young teller's eyes widened in shock. "Me?" she whispered. "You saw the problem," Ava replied, "and you did something about it. That's leadership." The board, still watching via video, immediately approved the restructure. The shift was now official. The branch wouldn't be shut down, it would be turned into the model for all future locations. As applause quietly broke out among some staff members, thinking the worst was over, Ava offered one last surprise. She opened her phone again, this time playing a short audio clip recorded earlier. It was a conversation between two senior branch employees, mocking her withdrawal attempt, using inappropriate code phrases, even suggesting she might be flagged for possible fraud. Their voices were clear, and they were still in the building. Ava looked toward the hallway as two corporate security officers entered the branch. The individuals were identified and escorted out without a word. The tone shifted once again, respectful, alert, serious. The conflict was resolved, but the lesson lingered. Not just about judging someone's worth based on appearance, but about the hidden strength in staying calm, gathering truth, and using power not to punish, but to change things for good. And as Ava walked out that day, she wasn't just the CEO who had been denied her own withdrawal. She was the woman who made an entire system think twice. And that changed everything. The doors of the bank eased shut behind Ava as she stepped out into the sunlight. There was no crowd, no cameras. Just a quiet, ordinary afternoon. But inside, everything had changed. Employees stood a little taller, not out of fear, but from a sense of something real beginning. For the first time, they had seen leadership that didn't come from a title or position. It came from action and respect. Claire remained behind, now tasked with something bigger than she ever imagined. The restructuring plan wasn't just words on paper. It was a chance to rebuild trust, from the teller desk all the way to the top floor. She knew the pressure would be intense, that some might not welcome change. But she also knew she wasn't alone. Ava had told her before leaving, "The loudest power isn't the one that shouts. It's the one that listens, then acts." Jordan, too, stayed back after the dust settled. He met with staff personally, one by one, admitting where the system had failed and where he had fallen short. For someone who had spent most of his career protecting the status quo, it was a hard but necessary shift. And to his credit, he embraced it. Sometimes, leadership starts by letting go. The audit continued, but now with full cooperation. The bank's public statement acknowledged the incident and promised changes across all branches, crediting the courage of individuals at every level for sparking reform. It wasn't just corporate speak this time. It was real. As for Ava, she returned to her company the next morning as if nothing had happened. She didn't tweet about it, didn't make a video or write a post. She believed that the most important change doesn't need a spotlight, it just needs to stick. Her withdrawal had finally been processed, but in the end, the most valuable thing she took wasn't cash. It was proof. proof that a quiet stand, taken at the right moment, could ripple out and fix what others had simply learned to ignore. The story spread not because she forced it to, but because people needed it. A reminder that respect doesn't come from appearance, wealth, or assumptions. It comes from treating every human being with dignity, no matter what. And that's exactly what Ava walked out with. Dignity restored. Lessons delivered. And a bank forever changed.